I'm going to just check in case there are a few others that are messaging me that they didn't get the link. For those who are here, if you are not getting emails and would like to get emails about youth ministry stuff, please send me your name, church, your job position, or if you're a volunteer, that's fine, and then your email in the chat box, and I can add you if you'd like to be added to the email list. And we have different meetings for people who are working with youth. We do monthly meetings on Zoom. Last week we had a social and outdoor social distance gathering at a brewery. But we usually just kind of share some ideas, get to know each other. We'll probably be talking a lot about the youth gathering this year. So again, if you're not getting those emails, put your name, your church. I'm going to put this in the chat box, and then you can go ahead and put your name, your job title, and again, that could be volunteer, your email, your church, and the city that you're in. And I'll be happy to add you to the email list.
Emily, I did receive an email from Tyler Parks asking for the Zoom info. So I did send that to him about 10 minutes ago. So I'm hoping
he
sees it.
He messaged me as well, and I just sent it to him about 5 minutes ago. So hopefully he gets it one way or another.
Yeah.
Great. I'm glad you sent it to his email. And we will be recording this. I am recording now. So I think the Synod is going to upload the video on their YouTube site, and then I will send an email out with this. We will also share it if you're not already a part of the Youth Ministry Network Adult Leaders Facebook group. That's another place you can get updates. And again, on this email list, as well as in the Synod. So you will be able to see the video. Should we just give it one more minute before we start? Maybe Tracy and Molly, would you want to go ahead and introduce yourselves, name, pronouns, and where you're at and how you're connected with the youth gathering?
I'm actually going to let Molly go first. Not it.
Fine. No, my name is Molly Bechdean, and I serve as director for the ELCA Youth Gathering, and I am based here in Chicagoland, and so you are my people. And so that's I'm here to support Tracy, answer any questions she doesn't want to. My family and I are members at Lutheran Church of the Master in Carroll Stream, and my daughter is 15 now and very excited to attend her first official youth gathering. Wow. And so I get to go through it as a parent this time. So maybe I'll be coming to all of you for advice on that, right? That's good to be here tonight.
Hello, my name is Tracy Katschke. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am the Deacon and Youth Ministry Coordinator at Our Savior's Lutheran in Arlington Heights, as well as Peace Lutheran in Lake Zurich. So this is actually my first time serving as the Metro Chicago Synod's Youth Gathering Coordinator, or Gathering Synod Coordinator. And I am very excited, very, very excited to be representing Metro Chicago, to be the point of contact for all of you, as well as to just be able to have some fun. I mean, I think this is going to be a great gathering in 2022. And I'm excited to be a part of it and walk this journey with everybody here.
Great. I say we go ahead. It's about 6:36 and people are still kind of trickling in, but I think we should go ahead and get started. So if you want to go ahead and do your thing.
Sure. So as you may recall, the gathering was scheduled originally for, I believe it would have been about a month from now in 2021. And last February in 2020, I went to Minneapolis, prepared for a Synod coordinator training, had an absolute blast. There are 65 Synod coordinators, so one for each Synod in the US. And we just had a blast. We were pumped, ready to go. And then the great pause button happened. And what do you guys think that pause button was? COVID. COVID. So I am excited. I am excited that the gathering will be happening in 2022. In case you don't have the dates, the new youth gathering dates are the 24th through 28th of July 2022. And then some dates to also keep in mind is that the multicultural gathering, the mile, is from the 21st to 24th of July, as is the table. And the table is our is the gatherings offering for those teens with disabilities. So those are the new dates. And registration officially opens on September 22nd. And the early bird rate begins on that day. So then coming up, actually, this is already opened. We are always looking for volunteers. The Gathering Volunteer Corps and local volunteer applications have opened. Those actually opened on May 22nd. And I would encourage anyone who is interested in helping out in any way, shape, or form at the gathering to apply. And those applications do stay open until July 22nd, so exactly 2 months. I'm going to pause. Are there any questions about the dates? I know I threw a lot of numbers out there for everybody. Any questions thus far? No? All right. So what do I do? Why are you here listening to me on a Tuesday night? So the Gathering Synod Coordinator is your connection. I am your connection and your primary resource to all things youth gathering. Should you have a question, a concern between now and the time that you leave for gathering, or even at the gathering, I would be your person to reach out to. And I know Emily knows this about me and Judy knows this about me. I absolutely hate the words "I don't know." So I can promise you right now that I am never going to say to you, "I don't know." Instead, I'm going to say, "Let me check that out for you," or "I'm going to find the answer," or "Let's find this together." But you are never going to receive an email response of "I don't know." And if you do, send coffee, something is wrong. But I am here to help you in any way with, if it's you're looking for fundraising resources, if you're looking for registration resources, if you have something, a question about transportation and are looking for other churches in the area that you could partner up with. I am certainly your connection for that. And I'm also the one who will communicate any and all gathering details to you. So for those who are not on this call tonight, you will be receiving an email from me just to say, "Hey, how are you? This is who I am. This is what I do. And please feel free to reach out to me at any time." So that's what I can think of at the moment before I provide some additional resources. Does anybody have any questions so far. Or Molly, am I missing anything so far?
No, I think it was great. One thing I would maybe add is that with the new dates for 2022, there also comes a shift in the day pattern. So historically, the gathering has been a Wednesday to Sunday. For 21, we shifted to a Tuesday to Saturday, trying to keep it in one calendar week for our outdoor ministry friends. And then, you know, pandemic came and we took any 5 days they could give us, which luckily we're still in 1 week, which is a Sunday to Thursday for the gathering and the previous Thursday to Sunday for Mile on the Table. So that's a little bit of a difference with the day switch too.
I do have a question. This is Louisa Oliver. This is actually going to be our first time at Gethsemane, sending our kids to the gathering next year. So we're really excited. So we're really starting from like bottom. And so I definitely, would like to reach out to whomever, to either Molly or Tracy, because I do have a lot of questions. Our kids do want to, do fundraisers, in the type of community that we're at. We're kind of limited with fundings and things. So I would really appreciate all your input and what we can do.
Yes, and absolutely. I'm going to actually type into the chat right now my email. Bear with me 1 second here. And Louisa and anyone, I mean, please feel free to email me at any time. We can always set up a time to do a Zoom, to do a phone call. I'm not opposed to doing a socially distant coffee chat too, if the weather is not. Now the weather is getting nicer.
I have a question about eligibility. Are we including any of the older students since some of them have aged out, or what's the eligibility to attend?
Actually, I don't believe so, but I want to double check with Molly on that.
Yeah, so students have to be in grades 8 through 12 when they register next fall or winter, or whenever you get it done. So for those that are graduating this spring, I know it's like one more thing that they don't get to do, right? But we are encouraging them to think about volunteering. So they'll be old enough to go as a young adult volunteer, either with our general volunteer, our gathering volunteer corps, or as a servant companion, which is a special group of volunteers, all young adults, 19 to 30, and they help lead the service day for congregations. So they're not able to come as a participant, but they are able to come as a volunteer.
Molly and Tracy, can I add to that? I just thought of it when Molly said that. At the volunteer webinar the other night, talking about dates, they said the servant companion applications aren't going to open until November, I believe. So they are not part of this one that just opened. So that's,
Yep, that's
one more date.
Yeah. November they open. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, and actually thank you, Judy. The servant companion application opens on November 22nd. And Lynette, I know what we're offering too at Our Saviors. For those teens that have aged out, we have what we call college chaperones. So those teens are partnered up with another chaperone who is much older, and they work together to chaperone their group. So that's something we're definitely going to do because, Molly, you're right. That's just one more thing that this year's graduates are missing out on. Great questions. So there are some resources that I'd like to point you to. I know Molly just added in the chat the youth gathering website. And on that website, you will find a page with the webinars that do allow a deeper dive into the youth gathering, as well as there's a frequently asked questions page. So let's say it's like 2 a.m. and you're like, you know what, I just really want to get this answered. Odds are, if you've got the question, is going to be on the page. Or of course you can contact me and I'll get back to you as soon as my coffee kicks in. Or let's say you forget who your Gathering Synod coordinator is. There's also a really fun tab on there that you can type in and you'll be connected to me as well. And then of course, there's all sorts of getting ready materials. So there are youth gathering logos, there's PowerPoints, and there's also the handbook. The handbook is available on the website for free in the PDF version, or you're able to purchase the hard copy through Old Lutheran if that is something you would like to have. And let's not forget, the youth gathering is on social media. It's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, it's on Instagram, and I also believe it's on Snapchat. I'm about 90% sure it's on Snapchat. So you can connect to the youth gathering via social media, as well as I would encourage you to sign up on the ELCA website for the G News. It's a monthly newsletter that goes out, I want to say more towards the end of the month, and you receive any and all gathering updates from the ELCA. Any questions about the resources?
I'll say, especially if you're a first-time leader, but really even veterans, I think the handbook is just kind of like a survival guide. You know, all the it's not like I sat down on my computer and wrote it. We kind of crowdsourced it from folks all over the nation, and so it's just a book of best practices as you prepare, tips for when you're at the gathering. You know, how do you manage money? How do you manage kids? What should you expect in each program area? And then also a section on how do you bring this gathering experience home to, you know, adult members of your congregation, and, you know, what about those kids that didn't go that are a part of your senior high ministry? How do you kind of bring them into the, you know, into the fold, into the experience? So like Tracy said, it's a free download, and it's definitely worth your time to kind of thumb through or click through, I guess, and just, you know, steal some other people's good ideas.
Yeah. And it's not too early to start thinking about who you would like to have chaperone, and how you would like to get the word out to have chaperones, you know, chaperones come with you, as well as get the word out to your teens, to get them thinking about 2022. There's some great resources in the handbook as well for recruiting chaperones. One piece of advice that I would have is that, you know, the gathering is huge and there's a lot of people from all over. And if you know that you have an adult who may have chaperoned for you on a trip before, but doesn't like crowds, then maybe the gathering wouldn't be the best spot for them. So just something to keep in mind. If you have an adult who you know is really handy, but this might not be their jam, again, they may not be the right chaperone for this, but you could also be totally surprised. I mean, I had a chaperone 2 years ago on a mission trip who he was like, I just don't get into worship. I don't get into service projects. And I'm like, thanks for telling me on the way to West Virginia. And he's like the best chaperone I've ever had in my life. He was pretty awesome. Just something to start thinking about now. And of course, this isn't going to be the last time that you hear from me. Coming up in probably late June, early July, when I receive more information from the Getting Ready materials, I will send out, I'll probably connect with Pastor Emily so that we can have another one of the Youth Ministry Network meetings, as well as probably something separate via Zoom as well. Via Zoom, and maybe try to do something in person. So you will hear the gathering news as I know it, gathering information as I know it, especially as we get closer to registration opening.
I would say too, Tracy mentioned Mile and the table, but I'd really encourage you to think about young people in your midst, young people of color or whose primary language is not English, or young people with disabilities in your congregation, or maybe even in your community, since we know most kids with disabilities aren't really connected to a faith community. But to really kind of think about, even if it's, you know, the onesies and the twosies, right? Maybe you have one or two young people that could go to Mile and then meet up with the rest of your congregation to attend the gathering. It can be a really powerful experience. And I know there's folks from the Synod who have gone. Emily is a big Mile champion, and there's others too. So just to maybe be thinking about that and maybe have a special invitation to those young people and their families.
So I have a question. If they go to table and want to stay for the rest of it, is that 2 separate registrations?
Yeah, so the
Okay.
hope, kind of expectation is that they would go to both. Certainly for Mile with the table, we know sometimes you know, kids with disabilities, just that's a long time to be away from home or just to be on. And so there's, you know, I would say maybe a quarter of the table participants don't end up coming over to the gathering. But yeah, it's all part of the same process. And so to register for Mile or the table is $190 for the whole time, and that includes your program, your food, and your housing. So it's a subsidized piece, but so it's the additional fee of $190 to attend, but it's all through like the gathering registration portal.
Okay.
And
And
where
So
that
I guess but they need to register for both if they're staying. I guess that was more my, okay. Thanks.
Yeah. And do you know where the housing or where that's going to be for the Mile and the table, or is that something to come later?
Yeah, so Mile is going to be at the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, a wonderful Catholic university that has been like so hospitable. They're super great, and it's a beautiful campus. And so Mile will happen there, and then the kids will go to their assigned hotel after that. We're going to try to house by Synod again. That's the plan. And so all the Metro Chicago folks will be in a hotel together or in, you know, 2 neighboring properties. And then the table is at the Marriott in Bloomington. And same thing there, most kids will move to join their congregation and their Synod at their property. And if moving's too hard, then we just leave the kid and their family there.
I do want to bring this up about safety. I did have a congregation member at Our Savior's ask me about the safety of going to Minneapolis with everything that has happened there within the past year. And I'm sure I'm echoing what Molly is going to say too, in that our top priority for the gathering, for myself, for the Metro Chicago Synod, is that safety is our #1 priority. I do know that the gathering is working with the Minneapolis Police Department, but they also have their own security as well. I don't know, Molly, if there was anything else you wanted to add.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be happy to, you know, address if there's specific questions, I'm happy to bat those around again. But yeah, like Tracy said, safety is a top priority. We want every kid who comes to the gathering to go home.
Right.
I mean, that's really the goal. And then after that, to have this like amazing faith formation experience. So yeah, you know, the spotlight has been on the city of Minneapolis, but we're still confident that it is a safe place to take our kids, and we'll be issuing a lot of the same safety guidance as we usually do. We know for a lot of kids, and maybe even for some adults, this is their first time in a major metro area. I mean, it was for me when I went to my first gathering in New Orleans as a high school student. It was my first time in a big city. I didn't know how to behave. And, you know, the pastor's wife who took us, I don't know how much she'd been in a big city. And so we try to provide that guidance for kids, for adults, of like, this is how you move in a big city. This is how you act. And, you know, I will say the history of the gathering, the local crime onto gathering participants is next to zero. I mean, we don't even deal with like pickpocketing most of the time, let alone any kind of more serious crime. So the gathering kind of in some ways forms its own bubble. And if people kind of listen and play by the rules and, you know, that kind of stuff, it's a safe experience. But yeah.
Are there any other questions concerning safety at the gathering? While we're on the topic. I did just receive a question about COVID vaccinations, and I am not 100% certain on the answer. Molly, last I heard we weren't asking for proof. Is that still correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
We will not be requiring vaccinations, although we are encouraging them for kids, for grown-ups, for all the people, but will not be requiring them.
Great question. Great question.
I will say too, I mean, it changes, it feels like every week, right? I mean, you all work or live in churches, but you know, we're gonna kind of roll with what the practices are, you know, when it comes to masking and those things. You know, I've said from the start, there's no such thing as social distancing at the gathering. So if we're in a place in our world where that needs to be the thing, I just can't, in all of my brain, I can't imagine how we would go forward with a gathering if we need to stay 6 feet apart from each other. But I don't think we'll be there. But you know, some of the other kind of precautions will kind of make decisions with our major venues, with the city, all of that closer to it.
Great question. Great question. Any other questions? Any other questions that you may have about dates, material, anything at all?
Yeah, I have a question. You said the dates are Sunday through Thursday. So usually we close with a closing worship on Sunday. So how does that going to work this time around?
We will close with a closing worship on Thursday.
Okay. And so I assume that most churches are going to be worshiping in their home congregations and then leaving, and the first event won't happen until Sunday night?
Yeah, so the pattern will feel very similar if you've been before. There'll be some kind of light programming in the late afternoon that you can opt into or opt out of, that kind of thing. But the mass gathering on Sunday night will be the first, if you don't attend Mile at the Table, will be the first kind of gathering program piece. And then we'll be done with closing worship on Thursday by like noon.
All right, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Nicole, I think I see your hand. I'm not sure.
Sorry for the dog. I know at some of the past gatherings, it's kind of been variable based on like housing locations and where the mass, like, do we know how much busing is going to be involved in this one? Like compared to the previous couple, just as a curiosity for, you know, how it's going to work.
I'm actually going to pass that question to Molly since I'm not sure 100% sure.
Sure. So we have about a third of our housing in downtown Minneapolis, which would all be walkable to the major venues, the convention center and US Bank Stadium. Excuse me. And then about another third of the housing is in Bloomington, which is right next to the airport. So like Mall of America airport area is another third. And a good portion of the rooms out in Bloomington are accessible to downtown by the light rail. And then I would say, let's say half of the Bloomington hotels are accessible by light rail, and the other stuff, the other hotels will be using bus shuttling or your own transportation if you choose. And then the final third of the hotels are in the West Metro area, which would all be buses, and St. Paul, which is on the other side of the river. And several of those are accessible to downtown Minneapolis by a different line on the light rail. And so, I don't know, it's a little bit of everything. I think it's going to feel like a little, if you've been before, it's going to feel a little Detroit, a little Houston, a little New Orleans. It's kind of just a mix of all that.
Now, all that information that you just mentioned, it is on the website, right? So we don't have to look for hotels like or something. I know you said we're going to have the Metro Chicago, and I just want to make sure all of that's in there because I'm extremely overwhelmed with this. I'm a little, on edge on it.
Yeah, it's a lot. I hear you, Louisa. But yeah, so that when you register for the gathering, we will assign you housing at a hotel. And then, we'll work with you to figure out how many rooms you need. And then you'll make a rooming list and put that into the registration portal along with your payment.
I do have another question. I'm sorry. Now, I know, Tracy, you mentioned about doing like fundraisers and things like that. I was wondering, do you think it would be, I guess, not appropriate or I guess suitable for us to maybe do a GoFundMe page?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thing to note, the GoFundMe page is you have to be able to submit the nonprofit piece, and there is a piece that you have to pay back. So
Oh,
look into it farther before you actually go, hey, this is a great idea, because there are a lot of hidden fees in it.
Heard
oh,
that Thrivent Financial for Lutheran, or no, they're not for Lutherans anymore. They're for everyone. Thrivent Financial has a similar product now to GoFundMe. Has anybody
oh.
used? I think it's really new. Has anybody used it or know more about it? Maybe it would be more friendly to the fees and all that. But I would maybe look into that too.
Yeah, I would suggest not using GoFundMe because of the fees, and it takes a while to get the money back and things like that. So if you could set up something at your own church so people can pay directly to a fund at your church, like just do a line item or something at your church and say it's your, like I would say Holy Trinity's Fund Me, thing, and then just have people send it directly to church. And I mean, we're lucky we have a Venmo account and people are used to doing electronic things at our church. And so if you can set up some of that stuff, that'll make it easier for people just to give donations.
There is, you can go to, excuse me, you can go to thrivent.com/action team. And they'll help out with that.
I'm sorry. Do you mind writing that in the chat,
Put
please?
it in the chat.
I'm writing notes at the same
No
time.
problem.
Sure.
Thank
And
you.
I literally just thought of this. I mean, one of your fundraisers could be to have a congregation member sponsor a teen. Sponsor one of your teens that's going on the gathering, and they become pen pals in a way.
Okay.
So the teen is, telling their sponsor all about what they're doing at the gathering and how traveling was. So that's a nice way to make an intergenerational connection as well.
Okay, great. Thank you for the idea.
We'll say as we're talking about money and finances and stuff, just another date. And all of these dates are on the timeline on the website too. But July 22nd is the opening for financial assistance. And that is awarded on an individual basis. And you as the youth leader can apply on your kids' behalf. And so that's something we give awards up to $300 to credit towards your registration. It is first come, first serve, and you just need to provide a statement of need. You don't need to put in mom's tax forms or anything like that. It's the honor system. And so that's July 22nd if you have families who need some financial help.
You said that opens the 22nd?
Yep, it opens the 22nd, and it kind of goes until we run out of money, which we always do.
That's kind of fun to use. I like to not tell parents that I'm doing that. And then when registration time comes, personally, I obviously tell those families that are maybe not sure they could go, like the gift to them.
Speaking of finances, would you mind going over what the fee, so I know we talked about the mile and the table fees, but could you go over what maybe, especially for those who haven't done this or it's been a little while, what the estimated cost would be and why, for what portions, like the transportation and all that housing?
Sure. So I can do a part of it. So I believe the registration is $190. And Molly, shake your head no, or shake your head yes if I am correct.
190 for mile on the table, 350
Yeah,
for the gathering.
before
Yep.
Yep, for gathering. And then I believe that the housing is rolled into the registration. Is that correct? No. Okay.
Nope. So we also, in the gathering handbook, there's also some sample budgets. And so if you download that handbook, you can see some sample budgets in there. So we usually say, so the registration fee is $350 for the gathering, $190 for a mile on the table. Our average hotel rate right now is about $159 plus tax. Congregations are not tax exempt from hotel tax in Minnesota, so boo.
Oh, wow.
And depending on where you are, the tax rates are between 10 and 13%. So that'll be something to make sure to budget for. So again, that 159 is the average across 80 properties right now. So, you know, it could be less, it might be a little more. And then transportation is great for those of us this year because it's not a 24-hour bus ride or maybe even a plane ride. I know, I'm guessing a lot of you are going to plan to drive there one way or another. Might be a great gathering for a Synod bus. We'll just give Tracy more to do, right? You want to hop on a coach bus together and drive the 6 hours. So that, you know, transportation is really variable. But should be pretty low this time. And then food, again, it kind of depends on, you know, the individual and the congregation. You know, how thrifty are you? I mean, we have folks who, you know, bring coolers of food and kind of hand it out to their kids in the morning. You know, the nice thing about downtown Minneapolis, maybe versus some other cities, is, you know, there's a downtown Target. I mean, there's a Target on like every block in the metro area. So whether you're in Bloomington or wherever you are, you'll have access to places like Target where you can run over and get, you know, cold cuts and cheese and bread and make sandwiches in your bedroom if you want, you know, for the kids the next morning. Or there's lots of restaurants in downtown Minneapolis. And so I know most congregations plan for at least like one semi-nice sit down, make a reservation kind of meal. So you're not just eating, you know, Chipotle on the go the whole time. So again, that kind of ranges. Most of the time we tell folks to plan for about $1,100 ahead to come to the gathering. Again, that could be a little cheaper for y'all this cycle, just because of decreased transportation costs. Does that help? Okay, great.
And just a tip about van rentals. So I have found that renting a van for the following summer is always cheaper if you make the reservation in like September or October. So I have gotten rates as low as for, let's say like a Dodge Caravan, as low as $250 per van. And for some reason, once January hits, the amount goes up. I've also paid as high as $400 per van. So truly, the sooner you rent your vans, if you decide you want to drive, the better.
One of the things that we've covenanted is if you register by the early bird deadline, which is November 21st, we promise to have your housing assignment in your registration portal by January 22nd. And so that may, I mean, this kind of, I guess, goes against what Tracy said in some ways. If you want to wait to decide if you're going to rent vans or how you're going to get there, right? Because if you're at a property downtown, there'll be parking fees, and those could vary. If you're at a, you know, hotel in the West Metro, it's free parking for your 15-passenger van on their flat lot. So, and we don't really do a whole lot of like pre-assignment for housing. So that could be, I guess, if you're feeling daring on what car rental prices would be, you could wait and then figure out what you want to do once you receive your housing assignment.
Usually once you make a reservation for a car rental, you can cancel it at any time, or so you could also make it first and then cancel it if you decide you don't need it.
Yeah, although the car rental companies are in such crisis right now in our country, I hope they get it figured out by the fall, but who knows, this might be the cycle to to wait and see too, because nobody has any cars. Yeah, they're like going for $65 a day
Yeah,
for
they're very expensive right
little
now.
cars. It's crazy.
Mhm.
Tracy, I could share a couple of things about what's new this cycle for
Sure,
folks,
please,
if you
please.
want. So few new things. One is that for Synod Day, which is a day of Bible study and worship and fellowship together with all the Metro Chicago people. Those will be hosted by local congregations this time. The Minneapolis-St. Paul area is probably the only place we'll ever get to do this because there's just lots of Lutheran churches and a lot of big ones. And so they are super excited. And so we'll be hosting those in 22 local congregations. And because we're in congregations, we'll also be able to provide you lunch for that day. And so usually the gathering just provides one meal during your service learning day, but this cycle we're able to do two. And so that's kind of fun. And again, the local Lutherans are very excited to host us. Another thing that's going to be an opportunity for change is for our service learning day. So that's the day you go out and volunteer in the community. We're running a pilot project to try to utilize some smaller nonprofits in our host cities. So usually a site, a social ministry site or whatever has to take, they have to commit to a busload of 45 people and commit to keeping them engaged and busy for 4 hours or, whatever magic number we agree on. And that leaves out, right, like a lot of places, right? Any kind of soup kitchen, any kind of, you all have taken groups of 10 to different places. And so for 2022, we're creating a pilot project, whereas if you have a group of less than 20 and you provide your own transportation, you can opt in. Oh my gosh, look at that little cutie on your lap, Becky. She's so cute. You can opt in to this pilot project and you'll be assigned to one of these smaller sites. And so you do have to provide your own transportation and you do provide your own lunch, and we provide a credit to your registration of $5 a person to help cover the lunch costs. But we hope it's a way to kind of engage some of these smaller nonprofits to give adult leaders who want it a little bit more control and freedom. And so we're going to try it out. Maybe we'll love it and maybe we'll hate it. You'll have a virtual servant companion that will be your buddy for the day. And there'll also be a location that you go to after your project for something that we're calling Impact. Last time it was the celebration of service. This time we're focusing it a little differently, but it'll be a chance for you to go and debrief your service day and to engage in some activities that are specifically geared towards advocacy and, kind of what now? How do I take this experience back home? So that's a change for your service learning day, and a new opportunity for your interactive learning day is a new time to be in a medium-sized group of about 3,000 and engage with some scripture. So we have a daily theme for each day. And so this new kind of Bible study-esque time, about 45 minutes, and you'll be in an auditorium and there'll be some, diving into scripture and, maybe some music and some other fun stuff. But we just felt like we need a little bit more scripture and just some more chance to kind of get into the story and the word. And so that will be a new piece of your interactive learning day.
And Molly, that would be sort of when they gather on that day, they start with this time together and then they can disperse sort of like what they usually have done in the past with the learning day, or?
There'll be 3 different times and you'll be assigned to one of them. I think it's like 10, 1, and 3.
Okay.
And then you'll be assigned to go to one of those.
Okay, great.
Molly, also on the pilot project, where would we indicate that we're interested in that?
When you register, there'll be a button to check or something.
Perfect.
And there's more info on the pilot project on the website already too, if you want to. I talk really fast, so if you weren't able to write as fast as I talk.
Thank goodness it's recorded.
Thank you, Molly. I appreciate that. Any other questions?
have another question, sorry.
Sure.
Where is everything going to be located then, like for the mass gathering and all of, I mean, what's the layout? Where will everything take place?
So as I don't believe this has changed. Everything is going to be in US Bank Stadium, downtown. And if memory serves me correctly from the last time that I was in Minneapolis for the training, it is like you cannot miss it on the light rail. And I believe that's where the mass gathering is going to be. That's where most of the events are going to be, and we disperse from there.
Yep. So interactive learning will still be at the convention center. And so that's kind of like our second big venue. And I would say it's very walkable. I mean, for a gathering, it's less than a mile between the convention center and the stadium. And so, yeah, we'll be at the convention center for interactive learning. And then we're also going to try, so there's a really cool, like, grassy knoll park area in front of US Bank Stadium. And so we're going to try to do some programming and some food trucks and maybe some other food options there in the couple of hours leading up to US Bank Stadium, to maybe like a talent stage. We're talking to some of our camps and to see if maybe that's a place where we can have some camp counselors up on stage leading some songs and that kind of stuff. So that'll be in the dinner time hour before the doors open to the stadium.
And when we,
sorry.
No, go ahead, Emily, go ahead.
So basically, if people are not staying, if you're staying downtown, you'd be able to walk to the interactive learning, the mass gathering, and I'm trying to remember again, the third, wherever the meeting place for Synod, where we go for Synod Day. Or Synod Day, probably there's a bus that will take folks.
Okay.
So
if you opt into gathering transportation, which you can do on your when you register, if you opt into gathering transportation, then we will take you to your Synod Day. Okay. Or if you're, out in the West Metro, we'll pick you up and bring you to interactive learning and then take you home at the end of the night.
Great.
So I have a question about that. I've never known whether or not to opt into transportation, not knowing what my hotel is. Like why? So tell me how that works. Like, do we opt in, and then if we're in a place downtown that's walkable, we can get back out? Because I've had that happen I think that happened to me in Houston, where we didn't opt in, and then we got moved and we ended up really far away. Anyway, talk to me about that. Like why it goes that way and how we work it to our advantage.
Yeah, so our transportation team leader, and I agree, has said she thinks that people should opt into gathering transportation, especially this year. Downtown Minneapolis, especially around the stadium, particularly around the stadium, is not super friendly as far as parking goes, as far as staging buses go. And so if we can have as much kind of control over that area as possible, transportation is just going to go more smoothly for everybody. So like what we're telling people is opt into transportation, because even if you stay downtown and you don't need us to get you home at the end of the night or get you to your interactive learning day, there's a good chance that your site for Synod Day is not going to be walkable. There are only 2 congregations that are walkable from downtown for Synod Day. So there's a good chance that you're going to need us one of the days. And you can change up until, what do we just say? March, I think we said. You can go back in and change. If you selected gathering transportation, you can change your mind and say, no, I'm going to just drive myself everywhere, or vice versa. I think until March.
Okay. Is Kim still doing transportation stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say when in doubt, opt in.
Yeah, I know when we were in Houston, we opted in, but then ended up, it was always so hard to get on a bus. We just ended up using Uber a lot more than I anticipated. But we did opt in, used it when we could.
And my guess,
ask a not transportation question, or is yours a transportation question?
It was transportation. It was just kind of a thought, is that I think if those who went to Houston, it's probably going to be very different from Houston. Correct me if I'm wrong, Molly and Tracy, that because Minneapolis is not as spread out like Houston was, where Houston was just like everything, you had to kind of be bussed here and there, and that things weren't all, so is that correct, that here it will be a lot easier if you opt in? You really don't need to have your own car. It will be a lot easier to get around.
Yeah, I think so in some ways. I mean, there definitely is like a downtown feel. And I mean, I guess in Houston, once you were kind of at the compound, you could stay there for a lot of the day. But yeah, I mean, there definitely is a downtown feel to Minneapolis. But there is, I mean, not everything's walkable either. So you're gonna either have to get on one of our buses or get on your bus or get in your car or take an Uber. Chances are good that you're gonna have to do one of those things at least a couple of times.
Right. Or take the light rail. Yeah.
Take
One
the
of
light
those
rail.
things.
Yep. And the nice thing too is 2 years ago in 2019, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod had their national youth event, their youth gathering in Minneapolis. And so my team and I were able to go, and they're a little smaller than us, but 22,000 kids still kind of invading the city. And so we were really able to see how the flow works, and can the light rail handle what they say they can, or is it going to be another Houston nightmare? And so like we were really able to see this city in action, and frankly the LCMS folks worked out some kinks for us, and I'm really thankful for that too. We'll make new mistakes.
So my question, I think we heard it at the extravaganza, about the idea of giving out tickets for the mass gathering instead of just everybody rushing in. Is that right, or am I remembering that wrong?
We've talked about ticketing, or I think where we landed is that we are going to be using multiple, and there'll be more details on this as we go, but there'll be multiple entrances for different areas. So if you really want to sit on the floor, you're going to enter through gate A. If you don't care where you sit, it might be gate B. We've also talked about doing some like pre-wristbanding. And so we're still trying to figure that out, but we're very committed to making sure there's a better flow into the stadium, and this stadium just works a little better for that too. There'll still be metal detectors, and frankly, we kind of like that because it does slow the crowd down. We don't want a crushing crowd, but we are going to use at least, I think we've decided at least 3 entrances to kind of make sure people can get in safely and more quickly.
My question was related, it's not about the whole mass gathering, but about the gathering floor, getting access to the floor, and I was wondering if there would be some sort of lottery that people could enter into ahead of time, so that it's not always the same people on the floor. Like if everybody can get in once and you just know what your assigned day is to get on the floor or something. Have you thought about that, or how's that being worked out?
We have, and we've done something similar in the past. Part of the issue is that there aren't enough seats for everybody to have a turn. And so, but we have talked about, and that's kind of what I think Judy was maybe talking about, like a ticketing method where you would like go in and select your night and, that kind of thing. So I wouldn't say that that's completely out of the question, but I think we've kind of moved towards a different approach. But yeah, I mean, that's good. We're going to probably make some final decisions this summer when we meet. So I'll definitely bring it up to our team that's come up again. And
yeah, I mean, I'd really appreciate, because my kids wanted to sit, so then you end up like standing in line for 3 hours ahead of time just so you can get access to the floor, and then you might not get access to the floor. So not that there would need to be like assigned seats, but even if we knew which night was our night, and even if it was a lottery and then we didn't win the lottery, didn't get a seat on the floor, then we just didn't, but I think if there were some way to lottery and then assign wristbands or something for that, like my church got 20 floor tickets because I had 20 kids, floor tickets on Tuesday, then I would know that's the day that I go into door A and wouldn't have to make such a fuss.
Right. I agree.
Yeah.
We wasted so much time waiting in line just because they wanted to get onto the floor, and then we get on the floor and, you know, and I know there are people that got on the floor every single day, and then there are some who never got on it. So we almost got crushed too, so.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'll definitely, like I said, we haven't made any final decisions, so.
Great comments and great questions, for sure. Any other questions, comments, concerns that you can think of this evening? And of course, if you think of something between the end of the Zoom call and, you know, a week from now, by all means, feel free to email me or contact me. I'm definitely available, and I don't know is never my answer. Worst case, it's going to be, let me find out.
I came in a tiny bit late, so maybe this has already been said, but I also want to encourage everybody who's here and people who listen to the recording later to try to come to our Thursday meetings that we have once a month, because we have a smaller group like this and we all help answer each other's questions. We give ideas about how to do fundraising, or how did I arrange for my bus travel before, you know, whatever. So it's a nice smaller group like this to be able to talk about individual church needs. And as you get closer and closer to the event or registering, it's going to be a helpful place for you to come. So we meet on Thursdays, the last Thursday of the month, right, guys? Last Thursday of the month from 10:30 to noon. And we're meeting this Thursday, 2 days from now.
Is there a another time that you guys meet? Because I mean, I work.
We have started having night meetings too. So once a month, we've been doing night meetings for people like you who are, you know, have other jobs during the day and aren't, you know, employed by the church to work during the day. So and I don't know, maybe we're taking a break from that for the summer, I think. Is that what we decided? Do you remember, Tracy or Emily?
Don't remember.
I don't remember.
Decided. But I think if there were people who were interested, enough people who were interested in doing an evening meeting, I think, especially with getting prepped for the gathering,
Right.
we should definitely host something like that.
Right.
I know we at the last
Absolutely.
meeting debated whether or not even to have meetings at all in the summer, and we agreed to meet in the summer, but my vague memory is that we we don't have evening ones planned right now in the summertime.
Right. But it is a great way, regardless of whether you attend a morning meeting or one of the evening meetings when they're available, to just make connections. Make connections with other youth leaders, other youth pastors in Metro Chicago, and bounce ideas off of one another. It's always great.
There have been events and how to deal with the pandemic, working with youth with the pandemic, but also, and people have been stealing each other's ideas. It's been great, but also I'm sure a lot of stuff will come up as far as fundraising when, more details about the gathering. So I think it will be helpful with that.
Yeah. And of course, there's certainly been many meetings where we just, have self-care, have time to just chat and lift each other up in prayer, lift each other up as colleagues, as friends. So it's a great group to be connected with.
Speaking of other groups, Molly, do you happen to, the Thursday meetings, those are, did we say, is it 10:30 to 12 usually?
Yes. The last Thursday of the month.
And again, if you're not on the email list, make sure you get on that email list. And Michelle, will you make sure to do another email, like maybe tomorrow, once I can add all of the other updated emails that have been offered, so that you have an updated email list with the.
Sure, I can edit again. I'll go grab the Zoom link now and drop it in the chat too.
Yeah. Another thing, Molly, do you happen to know, or do you not necessarily know about the Youth Ministry Network, about their extravaganza event? If they're talking about having it this year?
Yeah. So the Youth Ministry Network is like the national organization for youth workers And that's real broadly defined: lay, rostered, professional, volunteer. So it's the network across the ELCA, and they have a continuing education event every year called the Extravaganza. And the year before the gathering, they host it in the gathering host city. And so that will be the same way in 2022. And it is Valentine's Day weekend. It's a little later than normal, but it's that kind of Valentine's Day weekend. And I mean, the Extravaganza is always a great event for networking and continuing education. They have like awesome speakers and like 60 different workshops. But this year in particular, it's nice to get into the gathering city. We'll do a bus tour so you can kind of see the lay of the land a little bit, get some insider information as we, tromp around, roll around Minneapolis. And you'll know your housing assignment by then, so you can either go over to your hotel and check that out, see what's around, oh, there's restaurants, or there's a grocery store, or there's not, and kind of know some of that too. So yeah, I would say, I know some congregations actually work it into their fundraising to send their primary adult leader to the Extravaganza, because it's just such a valuable event in general, but then to get into the host city is just like a big bonus. So that might be something to consider.
Especially this year, I mean, especially being so close to, but I've been to the Extravaganza, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, maybe 6 years. And I've always made it a point to go the year before the gathering. And that has made a huge difference for me to get a feel for where everything is, and to, there's a lot of extra prep there for workshops and things like that. So I find that very
Yeah, I'll drop that in the chat too. And I hear the crazy thing. So we picked the theme for the gathering in the spring of 2019, had a team of kids and adults and stuff. And at the same time, the networks group, which we're friends, related, but not all the same people, we picked the same theme. They picked Boundless and we picked Boundless, and neither group knew until the next fall when we announced our theme. And their executive director texted me and he's like, did somebody tell you? And I was like, no, what are you talking about? He's like, we picked the same theme for one of our years. They do like a 3-year theme block at a time. And I was like, ooh, Holy Spirit moment.
That's great. For people who may be new to this, and even I think this year is just kind of a different year because everything, but some people may be like already feeling behind on it. Some folks may have already would have started the prepping and getting the recruiting of the students. I know that the timeline is maybe starting for people now. Would maybe either of you want to just share what your recommended timeline might be for like the next steps, like what might be important for this summer as people are preparing?
My personal opinion would be this summer to start building up momentum, start building up energy and excitement for the youth gathering, especially since it didn't happen this year. And I'm sure you probably have some teens that may have been on the younger side of being able to go to the last youth gathering that now aren't able to go. So maybe have them talk it up, right? Share their stories of the last youth gathering with your new crop of teens. And as I mentioned earlier, also start thinking about who your adult chaperones are going to be. And start really naming those individuals and asking them, hey, is this something that you're going to be interested in? Because I don't know if it's just something that I go through, but I have a harder time getting chaperones than I do teens. So definitely start thinking about who your chaperones should be, as well as really pumping up some energy.
I will say also in the gathering handbook, there's a 12 and an 18-month timeline that you can kind of refer to. But yeah, I would say what Tracy said, and also to put your thinking cap on about fundraising. I know that can be a source of anxiety for a lot of folks. I dropped a link in the chat earlier about some kind of COVID-friendly fundraiser ideas that we curated, things that you can do socially distanced or online. And so I know we're kind of in this in-between phase now where people are starting to come back, but not fully. But I would say it definitely to start some of that fundraising and to use it as group building too.
And please don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions to me at all.
Oh, can I give you one more date? Oh, yep, go ahead. Sorry, Lynette.
Yep. Sorry, go ahead, Lynette.
Is there a promotional video? I played a promotional video for the youth during our Zoom meetings this last spring. Is there something similar, or would we use the same one maybe during a church worship service with a temple talk from a youth that has previously attended?
Yeah, I can drop I'll drop the link in the chat. I have it.
Okay.
Here.
It might be the same one. Was it a young lady and a young man standing in a church? Yeah.
Yep. So that one's the same. And then the branded ones we updated just with like 2020.
So I can use that same video to intro, and then I had the director of the Board of Youth speak about, so the kids wouldn't be worried about the cost. And then I had a junior who had gone the last year to Houston, and he did like a talk in our Zoom sessions for 7th and 8th grade and for our high school youth group. So I thought I would have that repeated in a worship service, because we're Facebook Live every Sunday at church. So we might be reaching other people too.
Yeah. I think, those testimonies from young people who went before are just the best thing, because like we're old, what do we know, right?
Yeah.
But for, a 17-year-old to get up and say, hey, it was life-changing or at least fun.
Yeah.
You should think about going.
And he really emphasized how he got 3 free t-shirts. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, whatever it takes, buddy.
Yeah,
Jesus
because
doesn't
none
care
of
how
us
they get
have
there.
enough t-shirts. Yeah.
Yeah. And especially using those teens who, they'll be going off to college in the fall. Make sure their voices are heard this summer to really ramp up the support in your congregation.
And one thing I wanted to kind of note too, if you know that you have potential students who might need this scholarship, to find out to start getting an idea if they're going to, if they're interested in going, because again, the scholarships open up July 22nd. So like my thought, I have a lot of students that need scholarships. So I'm already like, I need to kind of sit down and say, these are all my potential students. And then I'm going to start having conversations this next month. Like June is going to be my time I'm talking to all of the students and the parents who are eligible to go next year and finding out if they're interested. And then I'm going to go ahead and apply for those scholarships for the students I know will need those scholarships.
I do have a question, Pastor Emily, in regards to the scholarships. I know the link doesn't open up till July 21st, which happens to be in the middle of the week, and I'm working, so I gotta get all the information on that. But I know with like information on scholarships or even grants, they always ask like all these questions, and it's kind of hard to reach our kids, especially during the summertime, and I'm working. Is there any way like so we could be ready instead of scrambling and trying to hurry up and submit these applications, that there's a portal or even examples of questions so we could be prepared? Because I am pretty much of a person that likes to have everything done on time. Otherwise I panic. So I don't know.
You read my mind. I just wrote it on my little sticky note right here. We have a worksheet for the financial assistance, and I just looked and it's not on the website yet. So I'm gonna ask my Justin, not my Justin, my guy, Justin.
Yay, otherwise I'll be asking all the questions as my hair keeps on turning gray.
Yeah, it's pretty basic though. I mean, it's like you have to know your congregational ID, kid's name, kind of some demographic information, and then a brief statement of need. But there is a worksheet that you can email to families and have them fill it out and then send it back to you.
Okay, great. Perfect. Thank you.
And if you're a volunteer and you're not sure about that congregational ID, check with your pastor and they'll know.
Or I have it as well.
Oh, or Tracy has it as well. So that's great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I'll
And then,
share-
I'm sorry, I was
Go
going to
ahead. No.
Molly, also, do you have the worksheet? Will there be worksheets as well that are available for the registration so that people could access those and prepare those before the registration early bird deadline?
Absolutely. Yep, those will be coming this summer. We're very excited. We're getting a brand new registration system, and it's going to be very fancy, and we're very pumped. And so we're finalizing that. And then I would say maybe even within the next month, those registration worksheets will be online. So again, you can email them to your families and do that. One of the updates, here's a little fun fact, is that with the new registration system, all payment will be electronic. You won't have to mail any checks anymore. And all of your hotel payments will also go through us. So you don't have to mess with paying the hotel either. So everything will just come through us.
That is very good news.
And if you have that church treasurer that like must write a check or something, you can just type in your check information and do it as an e-check.
Sweet.
So we're excited for that.
So registration and housing all go through you.
Yep.
Great.
Jenny, I think I saw your hand raised, but it went away. So I'm not sure if I was hallucinating or not.
I'm good. My question was answered.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
One final thing I'll throw out, I know we're probably getting close to done here, is on July 25th of this year, we're about a year out, we're going to premiere we're calling it like a gathering kickoff celebration video. It's going to be like 45 minutes long, and our hope is that, you know, outside or in your youth room or on Zoom together, that youth groups and congregations might gather and kind of use this as a kickoff point. We're gonna, you know, there'll be a whole, I mean, there's like 15 or 16 different little snippets that'll all kind of be woven together. We'll hear from our host, the bishop of our host synod, and she'll talk a little bit about the theme. Our in-kind offering is going to be revealed. We'll hear from some interactive learning partners. And so we just thought it'd be kind of a fun way. We're a year out. We really think this thing's going to happen. So let's get together, you know, if that's safe and possible, and kind of have this kickoff celebration. And it'll be saved. So if you want to do your kickoff celebration in September, you can just fire up the video and do it then.
Awesome. One other question, if you could, and I'm just asking this, I know a lot of these answers, but I think because I've done it before, unless it's changed, is would you maybe share about how the payment goes, like the timing, so people know when they need to pay certain pieces of the event? Do you have to pay it all up front? Do you get to pay later? How does that work?
So let's see here. I believe you have to make a partial payment when you register on September 22nd. And then I am not seeing where there's another payment that would be due. Molly, please correct me if I'm wrong. Until June 22nd of 2022 is when housing and registration final payments are due.
That is absolutely correct. So your 150 non-refundable deposit is due when you register, September 22nd or anytime after that. Yep, and then nothing else is due until June 22nd. Absolutely.
Non-refundable, is it transferable?
Yes. So if Johnny registers and can't go anymore, but Billy can go, then you can move it over to Billy.
And if, let's say there's a group that registers and then they have to cancel, what happens with that?
Like a whole group? I mean, it says that they would lose their deposits.
Yep.
We have been known to show some grace with that, you know, right? But the idea is that you would lose your deposit.
Which is that 150 per person.
Per person.
Including the adults, is that correct? Including adults, yeah.
Yep.
And then one other question, I'm sorry, I have lots of questions here as I'm thinking of, what's the ratio adults to students?
It is, I'm sorry, go ahead, Emily, I cut you off.
Oh, no, that you recommend.
And actually, before I mention that, I do want to say that, you know, the non-refundable piece, that's fairly standard. So that's not something that would just be for the youth gathering. That is very standard with just mission trips in general, that if you were to cancel out, unless it's a complete act of God, you're not going to get your refund back or your deposit back. I believe it is one adult for every 5 kids, for every 5 teens.
Yeah, we require 1 to 7, but the average that people bring is 1 to 5.
5.
Yeah.
But they have to be the same sex, right? It's like if I have 8 girls and 1 boy, I need, I mean, like, how am I saying this? Let's say I have 5 girls and 1 boy. Do I still just need 1 chaperone, or do I need 1 male chaperone, 1 female chaperone?
Correct. 1 male chaperone, 1 female chaperone.
So we don't actually require that, but I would agree with Tracy that that's a best practice.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, did it used to be that way, that you required that? Never.
Not for a long time, if ever.
Huh.
But
Well,
it's always
good.
been like a strong recommendation. And I would
Yeah.
also say, even I would never come alone to the gathering, even if you have 3 kids. I would either join another congregation or just bring 2
Bring
adults.
another adult. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We've had, stories, and actually in the synod I served previously before this role, their primary adult leader fell down the steps and broke both of her arms.
Oh my
And
gosh.
the 2 kids that she was with had to sit in the hospital with her until we could connect them to somebody else and call home and make sure it was okay that these kids joined this other group and where are they staying. So, God forbid that happen ever again. But what are the chances? But yeah, never go alone. And for
Now-
other good reasons too. But
Right.
that's my
To
horror story.
avoid that, I guess, from happening, would you be able, or how would we be able to connect with other groups? Because in my group, there's only, my pastor and myself, which is the youth leader, and then we have 3 kids. So we're pretty small. And so we want to kind of hook up with the other church so then we won't be in a dilemma ourselves.
Absolutely. And I can't echo Pastor Emily enough that it would be definitely through the Youth Ministry Network, through Metro Chicago, or even, Louisa, you and I can have a conversation and see who geographically is close to you, which congregation would be that I could connect you with to see if you can partner up.
I wonder
Okay.
if maybe even there might be, as we kind of move forward, we could be asking these questions in the youth ministry, the meetings, to see if other people are thinking this way. But maybe also, Tracy, would you mind, maybe at some point when you send out some of these emails, have a list? One of the questions is, are you coming alone, or are you looking to pair up with another small congregation to share leaders? And then that way people can contact you.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we can also, if we hear stuff in these meetings, we can start making sure that folks get on those lists if they want to pair up with
Also a great way to save money on hotel rooms.
Mhm.
Even if if you have 1 male, kid, 1 male identifying kid, they just get their own room. But maybe Emily also has 1 random male kid, and since we house synods together, maybe your 2 random male kids can share a room, and now they're not alone, and you save some money. So if Tracy's willing to do some of that too, I know that has worked well in other synods.
Absolutely. And also to echo that as well, let's say you cannot find a male chaperone, but you have 1 or 2 boys. You can always partner with another congregation that may have 3 or 4 male chaperones, so that your guys are not going at it alone.
Do all of you have the same policy that we do, that adults never stay in a room with students?
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
So in the past, what I've had is I have had some young adult leaders. So I would then house the young adults together. So did I have two or three? I had two young adult leaders in Houston who were, one was like 25 and the other one was, I think, 21 or something. And so I had the two of them in a room, and then other adults I would have either if they wanted to share or they have their own room.
I will say too, another kind of pro tip, and kind of depends maybe on how your fundraising goes, but I've heard many a primary adult leader who says it was worth the extra, bake sale or whatever to have my own room, both from a mental health standpoint and a physical health, like getting a good night's sleep when you're the one that's in charge 18 hours a day. But it's also kind of nice to have a space that's a little bit more open. So if you do collect, all your kids in the morning, or if you're doing the final 15 together, it's kind of nice to have a room that's, maybe less occupied than others. So again, I know not everybody can afford that, but that's a kind of a pro tip.
Yeah. It's worth it. Definitely worth it.
I have a question. I know we talked about entire groups canceling, but what if you have a student who you sign up and then they can't make it? Can you replace that student with another student that's eligible?
Mhm.
And what would be the latest you could do something like that?
When registration closes in the spring.
Okay.
And just to give you the date, registration closes May 22nd of next year.
Yeah, so we always tell people, like, don't cancel a registration until you're absolutely sure you can't like find a random kid on the street to take it, because
Right.
once you cancel it, then you lose that $150. And then like the next week, Chloe comes in and she's like, oh, I can go now. So yeah, I would wait, as long as possible to cancel and just try to replace. Good question. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I know we are almost at time. I want to thank all of you for just attending, and great discussion, great conversation. And of course, my special thanks to Molly Bechdean for being here tonight as well. Being able to answer the questions that I couldn't, that were more technical in nature.
I know you would have found the answers, Tracy.
I would have tried. I would have sent a smoke signal to you for sure. Are there any final questions, thoughts, comments before we pray out for tonight?
Thank you both, and Molly, to your staff, you and your staff, for the fact that you're doing this in a pandemic, and
absolutely
it, and just persisting through it. I know this is really, really complex and weird for all of us. So just again, thank you for staying with it and caring so much about our kids and wanting to make this, a great gathering for them in the midst of coming out of this wild year.
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pastor Michelle?
She's clapping.
Oh, she's clapping. Okay. It's so hard to tell on Zoom. I'm so sorry. Pastor Emily, would you be so kind as to pray us out this evening?
Sure. All right. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
Gracious and loving God, we thank you for this time that we can gather today. We thank you for Tracy and for her leadership and just her willingness to be the one to answer as many questions as she can and gather the answers that she is able to for us, guiding us in this journey this year. Thank you so much for Molly and for the team, for the youth gathering, that they are continuing to persist and to create this wonderful event that will be just really powerful for our students. We know that these events can change lives and open doors. And we just pray for all of our students and our leaders that this can be a wonderful opportunity and time for these young people as we are coming out of this pandemic next year. God, we just ask that you continue to be with us and guide us as we are planning and ease some of our stress and help us to find some sense of peace knowing that you are working in and through us as we are serving and guiding our young people in these times. We ask these things in your loving name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much.
Everyone.
Thank you for everything. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Email
Have a good
Tracy with your
night.
questions. Did you like how I did that, Tracy?
Yes, I love it. Yes,
Tracy.
Have a good night.
Thank
Nice.
you both. Thank you
Yep, thanks,
again.
Emily.
You're very welcome. Good night.
Good night.